questions afterwards, okay? So that's our plan. God willing, about a half hour. I have a section of Gemara I want to go through with you guys and explain it the best I can. Save the questions, write it down, and we'll go through it afterwards. Let me show you the two psukim that I want to bring up over here. Let's start with Hebrew, and then we'll go to English. I think you can see my mouse, so I'll follow as I read. Veidaber, you can see it here. I'm going to point out, I'm going to go through quickly, but point out what's relevant to today's Gemara. Veidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel. V'amarta aleim, and say to them, Ish, man and man, kisista ishtoi, when his wife will go astray. And we're going to learn all this in the Gemara. It's not today's Gemara, but don't worry. We're going to learn the whole book, and therefore we're going to go over all these words. Umala by mal, and he will, she will act treacherously. I think is the way we'll see in the English in a moment how he translates all these words. The shachav ish oisa, and a man will lay with her. Shechva zera. I think the English word is carnally, like his seed will go into her, a kind of intimacy, the way you normally do. The nalam, and here's where I start getting into the words of today's Gemara that we're going to talk about. Menala me'ene isha, and she was hidden from the eyes of her husband. And hear these words now, these next two words. V'nistira v'hi nitma. She hid and she became impure. She hid and she became impure. Now, on a very simple English, it means she hid and she became impure. She hid from her husband. And at this point, if you remember last previous classes, Gemara said that we're talking about her here. Not really today's discussion so much, but we're talking about here that we believe that she actually committed to the act. And remember, actually, if we go into the next words, the Eidain Bo, this we learned in the previous class, that there's no two witnesses there, but there is one witness. Let's just finish. She wasn't raped. She wasn't forced into it. It was done willingly on her own willingness to this to happen. But I want to point out something which we call a hekesh here. V'nistira v'hi nitma. She hid and she became impure. What does like a hekesh mean? Sometimes, this is an interesting way for those that are new to this idea in learning, is when the Torah compares two words, two cases, two parts to each other, specifically here, the hiding. In other words, nistira means, the first word means she hid and she became impure. So it's comparing two parts to the story, the hiding with the guy and then becoming impure to the guy. That's called a hekesh. That means there's a similarity. That means that you could also say simply it's a flow. You hide and then you become impure. Then you have intimacy. But it also is a Torah is for regarding today's Gemara. I'm pointing this out. It's going to be very relevant. A style learning called the hekesh, that where the Torah is deliberately and specifically saying hiding and becoming impure is connected. There's an internal bond between the two. Now let's go on. V'aver olav ruach kina, next verse, and a feeling of jealousy comes over him. We're going to learn actually about at the end of today's class. We're going to learn about this verse today. V'kina es ishtoi, and he warned his wife. Right? He said to her, don't. I'm not comfortable. Don't be with this guy. V'hi nitma, and then she became impure. So we have another thing which I told you before. It's called the hekesh. The Torah is comparing the last few words that I underlined here. V'kines ishtoi, he warned his wife, which is the warning part. V'hi nitma, she became impure. So we have two hekeshes here. The Gemara is going to discuss. First hekesh, the first comparison I underlined earlier, is in the previous verse. V'nistira v'hi nitma. She hid and she became impure. So we were comparing the hiding part to them becoming impure. The second verse, in verse Yudalid, where it says v'kines ishtoi, where he warned his wife, v'hi nitma, and she became impure. We're now comparing the warning, not the hiding, the warning to becoming impure. So the Torah compares to becoming impure. In one area, it compares hiding with a guy to actually becoming impure with him. And in the next verse, it compares the warning of the husband to the wife, and then the scenario of her becoming impure. And that is relevant today. One more thing that's very relevant, where it says, Ve'eid ein ba, there's no witnesses here. Something very important. The whole week, last class, we had a discussion. We said there's no two witnesses there, but there's one. And we had that whole long lesson last class. But now I want to point something else exactly about those words. Ba means there was no witnesses, but in it there were no witnesses. Now, the Gemara understands from this verse, the rabbis all understand that obviously, when it says there were no witnesses in it, it's as if it said, in this case, there were no two witnesses. But when you say that, he's being so specific and saying, here there were no two witnesses, meaning in the other case, there were two witnesses. So again, remember I told you, we're going to discuss today the debate between Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Elazar, how many witnesses were by the warning and by the hiding. I'm sorry, by when the husband warned the wife or when the woman hid. They're going to base their argument. It's going to be logical later on, but now not even a logical argument on just what they would assume, but they're actually trying to find the identification of the Torah, because when she became impure, Ein Ba, V'hinitma, when she became impure, Ein Ba, there were no two witnesses and we'll trust one. But in another case, you need two witnesses and one is not enough. And that is going to be the discussion of the two hekeshes between Nistara, V'hinitma, and Vikinas Ishta Nitma, that hekesh, and the Ein Ba, there's all two witnesses here, but there are witnesses, but in another case, but not there. It's going to be exactly the discussion in today's Gemara. Now that you have the words, we can feel like we can go into the Gemara, which we want to do today over here. Okay, let's go inside. So we're holding Daf Beis, Amud Beis, which means page 2b, but you'll find it in the article. I'll tell you where it is in the article Gemara, because I know many of you have the article Gemara. Page 2b, 2b2. So it'll look like this, page 2b2, and then the right, there's two columns. It's the column on the right where it says the Mishnah stated. That is where you're holding 2b1. We're holding 2b2 already, actually. 2b2, right? The Mishnah stated right here. Here, that's where we're starting from here. And if you're looking at the Gemara, we're starting from over here. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer. Okay, that's where we're holding. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, Rabbi Yeshua says. So let's do it together inside. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, Rabbi Yeshua says. Let me find it here, and I'll point in our Gemara here for those who want to follow along here. Here we go. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer. I believe you can see my mouse, right? Menashe, you can see my mouse on the screen? Just wondering. Yeah? Rabbi Yeshua Aimer.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeshua says, Mekanela pi shnaim chulu. Said in our Mishnah, the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua. Yeshua said that when you Mekanela, when you warn her, there needs to be two witnesses there at the warning. And then Rabbi Yeshua went on to say, also when she hides the fact that she hid, there has to be two witnesses there. Then Rabbi Elazar, if you remember, argued. Rabbi Elazar was the first opinion. Rabbi Elazar said, I'm just saying this outside. This doesn't say inside. Rabbi Elazar said, no, you only have to have two witnesses when you warn her. But when people that saw her hide in the room, you only have to have one witness, or you could even say it on your own. Why are they arguing? My timer, so the Gemara right away asks, my timer, the Rabbi Yeshua, what is the reason of Rabbi Yeshua? Why does he say you need two witnesses? In both cases, to warn her, and two witnesses to see her seclude herself with that guy in the room. So Amar Kra, because the Torah says, Amar Kra, the verse says, it says in the verse, and remember that verse was talking about when there's witnesses that she actually cohabited with the man, that they actually had intimacy. Amar Kra, it says that you don't need two witnesses, only one, but only where she actually, there's a witness that saw her actually sin. Meaning there were no two witnesses, but not in a case where the husband warned the wife. There you need two, that we won't accept two. And then the word said, same word that one witness is enough to actually see the case of intimacy, but not where she heard. So in other words, the word ba, when it says that we will trust one witness, that it says there in that case where there was a witness that saw the intimacy. But regarding the warning of the husband to her and regarding seeing her go into a room alone, there has to be two witnesses. After there's two witnesses there and that happens, then someone else comes and says, I saw her actually have intimacy. Don't give her the water to drink. Just make her separate from her husband. then we'll trust one witness. Why? Because the Torah says there, once it's been established, only over there, only here, when she actually committed adultery, when there was a testimony that saw her commit the act, only there will we trust one witness. The ba means here, but nowhere else, not in the warning and not in the hiding. And that's where Rabbi Yeshua, that's the Gemara says, Rabbi Yeshua's source and his opinion and his reason why the other two parts, the earlier two parts of the story, where the husband warned her and she hid in the room with the guy, you need two witnesses, is because by the third part of the story, where she actually committed the adultery and there was witnesses, over there we'll trust one, but only ba only means only there. So what about Rabbi Eliezer? So what will Rabbi Eliezer say? Rabbi Shua just explained to us that he uses the term ba. Ba means that it's only in that case will we trust one, but nowhere else. Rabbi Eliezer says ba there the loy b'kinoi, that the word ba is only coming to exclude. It's not excluding everything else. It's only coming to exclude one thing. It says when it says here. Where there was a witness that saw them actually commit the act of adultery. When there was a witness here that actually saw them commit the act of adultery, it means this coming to exclude one other case, not every other case, one other case. So here and not one other place. So ba doesn't mean exclusively only here and nowhere else. The term ba means here and not one other place, which you'll need to. So he says, well, which one would that be? Which one would that be that it's coming to say you need two? So therefore he says it's only coming to say this is not allowed. One witness is not allowed in one other case. It's only coming, the word ba, the limitation and condition is saying, I'm coming to tell you, but not one other case you can't do this. Which one is it coming to do it? Is when the husband warned her that you need to. That's the way Rabbi Eliezer understands. So the verse ba means here and not there, not by warning. So Rabbi Yeshua learns, I was looking in the note in the article, he explained the debate here. The first, Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is the word ba is exclusive, only here, nowhere else. Everywhere else you need to, whatever parts of these stories are here. And Rabbi Eliezer said, no, the word ba is saying it's coming to exclude only one other case. And what's that other case? Where he warned her. Now, if you're thinking with me, the Gemara, you're going to ask a very simple question. Well, if it's only coming according to Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Yeshua, it's easy. Ba means nowhere else. Everywhere else you need two witnesses. Not like here you need one. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if ba is only coming to exclude one other case, that you need two in one other case, how do you know to exclude kinoi? Maybe it means to exclude stira where they hid. How do you know where to apply that one other case to? So the ema ba, maybe ba means here and not one other case. The other one of the other cases you need two. But like bistira, how do you know? Maybe in the case of you need two witnesses, that one witness won't work in a case where they need to catch her actually hiding in the room with the man. How do you know which one? If ba is only coming to exclude one, that you need two, and the other scenario, how do you know which one to exclude? The warning of the husband or the hiding. How do you know which one is the one that needs two? So the Gemara says, and that's why stira iskish l'tuma. I told you the idea of the hekesh. The Torah compared that it's similarized, so they're similar, the hiding to the tuma, that when the hid, and they were tummy, the ksiv, as it says in the verse, and this is what I showed you when we started the class. V'nistira, it says she hid with the guy. V'hinitma, and then she became impure. So she hides with the guy, and then she becomes impure, meaning that the hiding and her actually committing the act of adultery are very close. They're next to each other. They're very similar to each other. And therefore, they're both going to require one. Just like if there's a witness that says she did the act, one's enough. So too hiding is right next to it. The Torah is comparing the two and leaves one. So what am I going to say then is ba coming to exclude, because it's only coming to exclude one case that you need two. I'll say in the warning, I'll say that therefore what's left is that the warning needs to have two witnesses here. So the Gemara says back, we'll do a recap on this in a moment. The Gemara says, well, kininami iskish l'tuma. There's another hekesh, and I pointed that out to you in the beginning of the verses too, where the Torah compares kinoi, the warning, to the impurity, the ksiv, because it says in the Torah, Vikina is ishtoi. He warned his wife, the warning part. And then she ended up becoming impure. So the Torah is saying, is comparing the warning to the actually becoming impure. So how do I know? So we're back to square one. Let's start over again. Let's just do a little recap. Rabbi Yeshua said, the Torah says when she actually committed the adultery, when the witnesses to the actual act of adultery, to tuma, to the impurity, to the actually, it said ba. said there one will work, and only there and nowhere else. And therefore, everywhere else simply needs two. Good, very easy. So the warning needs two witnesses, the thousand warned her. The hiding in the room needs two witnesses, the Torah. And the one case that will be work is where there was a witness that the act was committed, and the Torah says you don't need two witnesses over there, but only there. Comes to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Elazar says no. When the Torah says but, it means here you need only one witness will work, and in one other case it won't work. You'll need two. Now, how does he know who to compare it to? So he wanted to say that compare the hiding to becoming impure, because there's a hekesh that probably the hiding, just like becoming impure, needs one. The hiding also only needs one. And what are you left with now? The warning. So that the warning is the one that when it says you need to do two. But we're going to say right back to him, what do you mean? There's another verse, the next verse after that the Torah says, compare the warning to the impurity. So how do you know now which one? It's equal grounds. So he says, so the Gemara goes on to say, but hamiyat rachmana ba. The bottom line is that the Torah said the word ba. Ba means, according to Rabbi Elazar's understanding, in a case of adultery that there were witnesses to the tumah, actually the adultery, one is enough, but one other case is not. So I have to choose one. So he says, Umar Isa, but what makes you see to choose one over the other? Which is the one? So how do you, Rabbi Elazar, decide? Fine, our argument's based off a word ba, but how do you know which is the one that has the two, that needs the two witnesses? So mistabra, so now he's going to say logical. Mistabra makes sense. It's logical. That stira adifa, that hiding is stronger, that it's more similar to tuma, that the hiding and actually doing the act are very similar to each other. Shekeinei sarta kituma, because it prohibits her to her husband, just like if there was witnesses to the actual act that was done. Why? What do I mean? What am I saying? What do I mean if there were actual witnesses to the act that was done? That what happens if one witness comes and says, I saw your wife together with this other guy? They're not going to be married to each other. The same exact thing happens if a witness comes and says, I saw the wife in a room secluded with the husbands. They won't be allowed to marry each other. So it would make sense, he says, and we're saying logically, I have no proof to show you from the Torah which one. From the Torah, all I know, according to Rabbi Elazar, is that one of them has to have two witnesses. Logically, I would say that hiding in the room is very similar to the act of intimacy. Just like the act of intimacy, the women, wife and husband, were not allowed to be married to each other. If it's true that that's what happened, hiding in the room will cause the same thing. And therefore, just like one witness is believed by the actual act, one witness should be believed also where they go into, where there was witnesses that they went into the room. And therefore, I would say one is enough in both. And the warning is what you will require the two witnesses. Logically, I want to say that hiding is similar to the actual act of intimacy that was done. And therefore, both of those only need one witness, and the two are required by the warning. So the Gemara says, Adrabah, the opposite. Kinei adifa. I would actually say that the warning is more similar to the act of a witness saying that they actually cohabited with each other. Because that's what started the whole story. Who opened up the whole can of worms over here? Because you said that you didn't trust your wife, you went before two witnesses. That is the biggest part of the story. So a witness catching the wife actually committing intimacy, and witnesses coming and saying that you warned your wife, those, the beginning act and the end act, those are the two most real acts, and therefore they should require only one witness because they're the most similar to each other. Because if not for the warning, the woman would have never become a prohibited to her husband. The Gemara says, well, if lav stira, you could say the same argument. If not for actually hiding in the room with the guy, the warning would be meaningless. So you need to have the warning, you need to have the hiding, otherwise you have nothing. So how could you choose one over the other, the warning or the hiding? Everything's necessary here, just like the witness saw the actual act happen regarding not trusting the wife because there was a warning and a hiding. You need both of them equally. So again, Rabbi Elazar, how are you choosing which one? If you know one of them is allowed, one of them's not allowed, how do you decide which one it is? Bilav kinoi stira. So he says, Ilav stira kinumayika. If you don't have hiding, what does the warning help? Bilav kinoi. And if you don't have a warning, stira mayahani. What does the hiding help? In other words, you must have both of them. So you have to have a warning and you have to have hiding. And only then is there an issue with the husband staying married to his wife. So he says, so who chooses which one is more similar to the impurity that one witness will be enough? Nevertheless, stira difa, hiding is more compared to the impurity. Why? The tumahu, because that's how begins the act of intimacy. So in other words, I guess time-wise, like there's an act of intimacy taking place. That act of intimacy would not take place if they wouldn't be hiding in the same room. So therefore, he ends the resolution. Rabbi Eliezer says, in his opinion, so we can make this very short. We don't have to go into a whole long drasha. Rabbi Eliezer simply says, the Torah said the word by ba, meaning only there, only in the case of intimacy will one witness be believed. But in one of the other two cases, you'll need two witnesses. And Rabbi Eliezer says, I extrapolate logically that the warning is the one that needs two witnesses and not the hiding, because the hiding is direct sequence taking place into the impurity taking place. So I'm going to use the same level of evidence needed, like impurity needed, to say that they went into the room and one witness would be enough. And the warning is the one that two witnesses are needed in order to tell us that their kinu that's a little further away. And when the Torah said in one other case you need to have two witnesses as part of the story, and that's going to be where the husband warns the wife. Very interesting Gemara. You guys with me? Zev, Ataiti, you with me? Yeah. Okay, good. Menashe, Gershon, you with me? You might have questions, but we'll take the questions later. So now, of course, that we have it clear, we're gonna add another layer now to it. The Gemara is going to bring another opinion which we never discussed, a brisa. Brisas were added on later on after the Mishnah that says exactly the opposite. It says exactly the opposite. And the Gemara is going to say our Mishnah makes more sense. What do I mean by saying the exactly opposite? They're going to say that Rabbi Eliezer never said that you need the two witnesses by the warning. This price is going to say exactly the opposite. That Rabbi Eliezer actually says the two witnesses need to be had by the stira, by the hiding in the room. And he's going to say exactly what we just said backwards. In other words, all the parts, the hekesh is here, the hekesh is there. We're going to say it backwards. Let's see.
Yeah, but maybe you're saying that the Brisa, I'm sorry to interrupt. The Brisa argues in the Mishnah itself.
He has another version of, but by the way, let me say something now. Who's the halacha like? The halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua, that you need two witnesses in the beginning and in the end. In other words, even within the Mishnah, the halacha follows anyway. Either way, the halacha follows the opinion that you need two witnesses in the beginning and you need two witnesses in the end. You'll see why. The Gemara, once he finishes telling us the Brisa who switches the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, it doesn't matter because anyway, that's not the halacha. I'm just saying the law anyway follows that you need two witnesses in the beginning. Then you'll see why in a moment we have to follow Rabbi Yeshua anyway. But I'm just saying in the Havamina, in the one opinion which we don't follow, there's a debate what he said. Our Mishnah says Rabbi Yeshua said that you needed two witnesses to the warning and only one witness is to the hiding. The Brisa is going to say Rabbi Eliezer held that you need one witness in the warning and two witnesses in the hiding. We're going to discuss that now in the Gemara. Yeah.
I guess my point just is more of a general one, that when a Mishnah Brisa disagree, obviously we're going to rely on the Mishnah, right? There's no case.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm recording this class now. I don't want to say anything without ask me after when I'm not recording. Okay. Like the Gemara, it's a good question. Let's discuss it later. I want to say something, but I'm scared to share something without looking it up first being recorded because this is going on YouTube. Okay. Like the Gemara, you never know. Could be in 10 years. I'll look like an idiot. Probably look like an idiot anyway. But okay, let's go weiter. Masnisin, our Mishnah that we just said, the Loika Haitano. Our Mishnah is not like another Tana, like another author of Mishnahs and Brisas from that period in time. The Tanya that we learned in a Brisa, here's what he says. Yoisi Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Yoisi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, says, I better move the screen here because, he says, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, same rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer, but it's a different rabbi in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Here we go. We're going to learn it the opposite. Rabbi Eliezer says, if somebody, you're with us, Zeb, we're going back inside. Somebody warns his wife, Mekan al pi dechad only warns her based on the testimony of one witness. He's switching it out. Oy al pi atzmai, or even based on his own testimony. Oh my God! And he gives her to drink. But when it comes to time to, I guess, hiding, when there's hiding there to make her drink now, actually, because she hid with the guy, al pi shnayim, there has to be two witnesses.
Exactly
That's
opposite.
it. It says exactly the opposite. So that's it. So we see. So hold on. We're going to actually see something which our Mishnah is going to address. An interesting thing, the Chachamim, which we didn't have in our Mishnah. The Brisa is saying something else. Shivu Chachamim. So the Chachamim, the rabbis, plural, said to him, listen, a little different than our Mishnah said. Here it takes a little bit different turn. According to the words of this rabbi, Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, there's going to be no end. This is a very strong argument, which is why the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua, actually not like Rabbi Elazar. But what does that mean? There's no end. We're going to talk about it. Hold on 1 minute. We're going to talk about it in a minute. It's a very important point. Why the halacha is actually this way. But the bottom line is my time at Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda. But before we get there to the Chachamim's argument that this doesn't work because it'll just be chaos. Why did Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda choose one way over the other? Why did he choose that Kinu should have one, according to the way the Brisa says, the warning should only have one witness, instead of the hiding should have two? Amar Kra, because it says in the pasuk exactly what he said. But it says there by her, in that case, the case of where the intimacy was seen by the witness is the case where one witness is believed, but not in one of the other cases. And that means, according to this way of way we're understanding Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar, that it's there, but not by hiding. So he learns that by hiding you need two, unlike where the witnesses saw the impurity, you need one. The hiding you need two, but by the warning, one is enough. Exactly the opposite. The aim above. So he asks the same question, the opposite what we asked before. But if ba is only excluding one case, how do we know that it's talking about the warning that one is enough and two is needed by hiding? My computer's about to die. Give me 1 second. Sorry. There's no wire here. We moved. Here, you get. We're gonna have to move a little bit. Okay. Are we good? Let me see if it's working. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, good. Yeah. So he's saying, how do we know? So ba, he wanted to say means one is enough. In the case of one is enough in the case of intimacy we're seeing. And it's also enough in the case of warning, but seeing them hiding, you need two. Right? So that's what he wants to learn from the word ba. So he says, but the ema, why don't we say ba v'lei b'kinui? How do we know that ba doesn't mean that in warning, maybe warning you need two? So he says the same answer we said before. Kiniyas yishatuma. There's a verse that compares the warning to tuma. The ksiv, as it says, v'kiniyas ishte v'hinitma. He warned his wife and she became impure. So the Torah is comparing the warning to the becoming impure. So the Gemara says back, well, we have a hekesh, a comparison between the other two also. The ksiv and nistera she hid, v'hinitman, she became impure. So hiding is connected to impure, to actually becoming impure, to having the intimacy. So we see that you should only need one there. So Gemara has an interesting answer, which we're also going to discuss later on. Ahu, that the Torah is comparing the hiding to the impurities for a different reason. Because how do you know why you're comparing it for? For hiding, you're comparing the warning to impurity to tell you, just like the impurity needs only one witness, is the warning also only needs one witness. So we're comparing the hiding to the impurity to tell you something else. How long does the man and women need to hide in a room to suspect that they actually committed the act? The kama shir stira, to tell you how long do they have to be hidden in the room for, an hour, 2 hours? How long do we going to suspect that maybe something happened and we'll give her the water to drink? Kidei tuma, however, huda asa, it's coming to tell you how long do they need to be in there only long enough to have intimacy? A minute, 2 minutes, and this is going to be discussed in the Gemara later on. How long is the time? It's going to be another discussion in the next page. We'll get to all this stuff, but the hekesh, the comparison is not to tell you, very interesting, that you only need one witness. That comparison is to tell you how long the hiding is. And here's where we're going to come to the bottom line. So till now, all we've done is say another opinion that Rabbi Eliezer holds, unlike our Mishnah, which said Rabbi Eliezer held that you need 2 witnesses for the warning and 1 witness for the hiding. He now flips it. The Brisa says you need 1 witness for the warning and 2 witnesses for the hiding. Gemara says the Shiva Chachamim, and the rabbis answered him, according to your words. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, Ein l'davar sa. If you said those words you said in that brisa, there is no end. You have chaos. My meal. What does that mean? What chaos? What will there be no end to? He says very simple. This imminent, there'll be a time. The loy kani, which he never warned his wife, and he's going to get really angry at you. He's going to get caught up in the moment. And you know what he's going to say? He's so angry that he saw his wife and a man be in the room together in one place. V'amar, you know what he's going to say in that anger? Kanai, I warned her. And I don't need any witnesses. 1 witnesses or even my own testimony, I could say that I warned her. And what's going to happen? And you know what? Maybe she really was in the room with the guy, but she was never warned by her husband not to be in the room with the guy. They had a meeting. They went out for a drink, and he got really angry. 2 of them had a drink in a room together themselves. There's nothing wrong. Nothing can happen. But all we need is.
So what does it mean? In l'davar saif, there's no end to it. What does that mean?
There's no end, because how can you trust any husband who gets angry at his wife because she was with? Because he never warned her, never gave her any warning. He doesn't need any witnesses that he warned her. He could come at his own volition and say, I warned her. She could have meanwhile been with 50 guys in a secluded room. He wants to make trouble for her. Any of those 50 guys that she had a meeting with in a quiet room, he could make up a story and he could say that I warned her before she was in the room with the guy, and that's it. And now they have to get divorced and she has to drink the water. So there's no end. It's a chaos. The system that we're creating here is a total disaster. But before the Mishnah says that, he says another question. He says, why don't we ask this question in our Mishnah? You could say the same question on our Mishnah. Why it doesn't just come on the Brisa of this question, that where there were 1 witness to the warning and 2 witnesses to the hiding, could also work the other way. The Zimni and the law Yister, he did warn her fine with 2 witnesses, but then maybe she never hid with a guy. And she says, and the husband comes and says, I saw her hide with the guy. Now we have a disaster on our hands, because if we don't need witnesses to the act that they hid, so the husband told the lady, don't hide with the guy. There was a normal case. There was 2 witnesses there, fine, and everything else. There was a warning and that worked. But he could just make up a story and say, I actually saw my wife hide with the guy, and then trouble, and then she'll have to get divorced and drink the water and everything else. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, you're right, Bar Yosef. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yechanan, and Afla Divri Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Ein l'davar saif. You're right, our Mishnah, there's no end. It's not a healthy system to say you don't require witnesses for the either for the warning or for the hiding. So you're right. There is no end to our Mishnah, and even to the Brisa. Also to the Brisa, there's no end. It's not a healthy situation. It's going to lead to chaos. So the Gemara just says, "After the Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda v'loimi by the Mishnah saying." Are you saying that our Mishnah makes obviously makes no sense, and even the Brisa makes no sense? I'll explain this in a minute. Adrabah. The Mishnah saying ikar hasam leka ikar. He's going to say what makes more no sense. They're both cannot work. Having no witnesses and the husband allowed to either say I warned her or the husband to say I saw her go in the room alone. Which one makes less sense? The Brisa makes less sense. I'll tell you why the Brisa makes less sense. Because at least in our Mishnah, where he warned her with 2 witnesses, it was a normal case. The guy woke up one morning, or he was very angry at his wife. He saw her hiding with a guy, and he goes over, makes a whole big deal out of it. He gets 2 witnesses, and he warns the wife, and he says, I'm warning you with 2 witnesses, or do not hide with the guy. And he got it out of his system. Now, will have to have a second angry time, which he'll get angry later to make up a story and say that will happen down the road. Say, I saw her hide with the guy. So it'll kind of need to wake up another angry moment in himself or something else to make up that story. In the case of the Brisa, the way that Eliezer wanted to say in the Brisa that it's just one angry time. What does he do? He gets really angry at his wife. He sees his wife in another room with a guy, calls over two witnesses at that moment, says, see, she's in there. I warned her already a month ago not to hide with the guy. So in other words, at least in the case of the Mishnah, he has to get, in the first case, it was a healthy case of witness and a warning. And then he had to get angry again a second time. But here, he only got angry once. He got angry at his wife because his wife was hanging out with another guy in a room. He runs over, gets to witnesses, says, look, my wife's there. I already warned her before. So that's what it means. So that's what the Gemara is saying, that don't say our Mishnah for sure doesn't make sense. The Brisa doesn't make sense. And for sure our Mishnah doesn't make sense. It should be the other way. Our Brisa for sure makes, our Mishnah doesn't make sense. And for sure the Brisa doesn't make sense because it's a much worse situation. So that's what he says. Eliyitmar hachi yitmar. If you want to say it, this is how you should say it. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yechanan. The Rabbi Rabbi Yitzchak, son of Rabbi Yosef, said the name of Rabbi Yechanan. And we're going to finish this topic here now. According to the words of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda in the Brisa, it doesn't make no sense. And the Mishnah saying even according to our Mishnah, there's no end. In other words, you cannot have a society in a culture and a situation where there can be either a warning or a hiding, a kino or a stira, without two witnesses there, because there's a lot of bad, messed up situations that could come, and you need to have two witnesses. That's the way the halacha follows. You have to have two witnesses for the warning, and you have to have the witnesses to the hiding. And the one case which you could have one witness is after you have two witnesses to the warning and you have two witnesses to the hiding, you could trust one witness if the wife had intimacy to make her not drink the water. But everything else definitely needs two witnesses. That's really the conclusion of basically, let me go over. So we had, let's just recap, and then we're going to go a little further. Gemara is going to get easier. So from here on, we're going to see a little bit easier Gemara. It's not so back and forth. That's why I think it's always hard when you start learning the Saita. The previous classes, Talmud, and the one we learn now is very complicated, but I think we're going to get a little bit easier now at this point. So let's just recap a little bit. So we had, in short, we have a debate in our Mishnah between two great rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer says that one of the two cases, you only require one witness, or you don't even need any witnesses. You could rely on the husband. The other case, you need two witnesses to say. And the way it goes in our Mishnah is you need two witnesses that you warned her. But when you catch them in the room, you could even do that on your own. You don't need witnesses to that. And our Gemara finishes today and says that the rabbis say, or that you cannot have a case which you can trust the husband, because it could be that he will make up a story. You always need two witnesses. And we're going to follow the opinion in our Mishnah that you need two witnesses, so we make sure the husband doesn't make up any cases. But seeing actual intimacy, you can rely on one witness to trust, and that you won't drink the water if one person comes and says a testimony. Okay, and we're going to go on. That's the end.
Is that the din, Levi?
That's the halacha. Yeah, that's the din. That's the law. That's the law follows.
As long as you have two aidim for kina and
for the warning, and two witnesses that saw her go in the room with a guy. If you have one witness that comes and says, I actually saw the intimacy, that will cancel the drinking. She will not be able to live with her husband anymore, and that will cancel her from drinking.
Let me ask you just a stupid question.
Should we do it after? Should we finish the Gemara and then do it after, Manasseh?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So there's another interesting case. Listen to this next story. We're holding, by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom, the beginning of the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Second word on the line. So I'll show you. Look what he says, something very interesting. Amar Rab Chanina. Go a little, move over, drop. Let me see. Amar Rab Chanina. Aleph Reish stands for Amar Rab. See it? Lower. Next one. Next line. Next line down. Aleph Reish with 2 dots in between. Here. Here. So if you see the word Saif, Rab Chanina. So Rabbi Chanina said, Rab Chanina Misura. Rab Chanina from the surah said, Loi Lema, you shouldn't say Inishe man, say to his wife, His man hazeh to his wife nowadays, today, no husband should tell his wife. Loitisteri, ahadi ploini, no husbands should tell his wife, don't hide with that man. Don't hide. You should never tell your wife today, nowadays. Never, ever. Even if you don't trust or whatever, don't say it. You're going to opening a can of hot worms. Why? Dilma, because perhaps, even though I'm telling you that's not the halacha, but perhaps, kain malon, we hold, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, maybe there's a chance, slight chance that we do hold like Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that you only require no witnesses for the warning. The Amar Kuni al Piatzma, who says that you could warn her based on your own, on yourself, without any witnesses. And what happens? We missed it out. All of a sudden, your wife becomes prohibited. By this, could be a serious problem today. No husbands. Imagine a husband telling his wife, I don't trust you. I don't want you alone in the room. And then the woman goes for a meeting or whatever and goes with the guy. The leka, and there isn't ha'idna nowadays, may saita, the water of saita, lemivdaka to check her. We don't have it today. We don't have a basic mikdash. We can't do it. V'ka'asar la ilavei, and he prohibits her on him. Isura de la ilam, prohibited forever. So we can have a real kasha. If, God forbid, we do hold like Rabbi Yehuda by a slim chance, even though we don't follow the halacha like that, now you told your wife, I don't trust you with this guy, don't hide in a room. Came a story a year or two later, I don't know how long later, a little bit later, she happened to be alone with the guy in a room. She becomes prohibited with her husband, and she needs to be checked out with the water. And there's no water to check out, and they have to get divorced. So nobody should tell their wives that they shouldn't hide with another guy because you're opening up a major can of worms. You have to get divorced. You might not be allowed to stay married to your wife anymore after that. Omer Reish Lakish says, an interesting question that's going to be connected to the topic. Ma loshen kinui. What is the word kinui? Now we started off our Gemara, Hamekana. That was the first word which we started learning in the Talmud 3 classes ago. What is this funny word? We have a word for warning in Judaism. It's called hasra, hamasra. Why don't we use the word? Who made up this word kinui? What does kinui mean? And it's going to connect to the topic. It's a very interesting question that we need to learn about if we're discussing this topic. That's the word the Torah uses. And he says, I'm going to translate it like this. Very interesting. Davar hamatil kina, something that brings kina, jealousy, and like a distance and fighting, beina, between the wife, lebein achenim, to other people. It's going to make her fight with her friends and other people in the world. Why? Why is it called jealousy? So when a husband warns his wife, it creates jealousy between him and her friends, her and other people. Alma kasavar. So very interesting. Based on this logic that Reish Lakish said, the word kinui comes from the term jealousy because when a husband warns his wife, he's going to make her jealous. Why? And the Gemara is going to explain. Why are people going to get angry at the wife? Why are her friends going to get upset at her? Other people are going to get upset at her if the husband warned his wife. What's the connection? Kasavar kinui al piatzmai. So must be, Reish Lakish holds that when a husband warns his wife, they do it quietly in their bedroom, in their own house, their private house. Nobody knows about it. And what happens? V'kuli alma lo yadi dekani. No one else knows that the husband warned his wife because, according to this logic, it's done quietly. But Amri, and all of a sudden everybody says, "Ma, my dekama de kabadla. What's going on? What's she up to that she's separating herself from us? Why is this woman separating herself from us and not talking to us and not hanging out with us?" The real reason is because the husband warned her. But based on this logic, the warning was done quietly at home without witnesses. This is proof to that idea that it's done quietly. Meanwhile, everyone hates her, but and everyone's going to be fighting with her. I know a lot of classical cases like this, not in a scenario where the husband doesn't trust her, but the husband tells the wife, don't share your clothes with your sisters and her friends. And then she borrowed a dress from her friend, and then the friend asks her to borrow back a dress, and she says no, and she says that she gets very upset, unless she knows that the husband said, I don't want you lending out your clothes. So these things happen, the husband doesn't let her go out to a party, whatever it is, that creates jealousy between friends. So in our specific scenario, since Reish Lakish, according to this understanding, that where does the term kinui come from? We're trying to understand this funny word that we never had before. Where does the word kinui come from? It means jealousy, because when a husband tells his wife, don't hide with this guy, don't talk to him, whatever, and all of a sudden she starts running away from this person and these people, and it's a major issue, all of a sudden she's making jealousy between her and her friends and upsetness because the husband's giving her warnings not to do stuff. And then nobody knows what the husband and her are going through because it's done quietly at home. So all of a sudden she's not acting normally with these guys. Maybe at work, all of a sudden she can't have a meeting with the guy at work. And he thinks, you start thinking all these stories. Why is she acting so weird next to me? But Rav Yein Marbash, so that's one answer. Shlakish holds the word kini. This is an interesting, it's connected to our topic. It's an interesting question. Where does the word kini come from? Kini means jealousy. And so it's another discussion in our Gemara. Where does the word kini that Torah uses a makana, the husband warning his wife, it means he's creating jealousy. By warning the wife with these kind of warnings, he's creating jealousy between her and her friends. Rav Yemar bar Shlemya, Mishmeida by Amr, another opinion, another rabbi called Rav Yemar, the son of Shlemya, in the name of Abaya said, Davar hamatil kina beinoi leveina. No, kina means it's a fight between the husband and the wife. He says, no, I don't think the warning is jealousy between her and her friends. I think the word means a fight between the husband and the wife. Alma, so based on that logic, what does kinui mean? Very different meaning. Kasavar, he holds, kinui al pishnayim edim. He's warning her with two witnesses, it must mean. And everybody knows what's going on in the husband and wife's private affairs, that the husband got two witnesses and the witnesses warned in front of her and the witness went and told all her friends. So nobody thinks she's fighting with her friends. She's extremely embarrassed now of her husband. She hates her husband. And he is the one causing friction with her based on this word kinu. So in other words, if kinu, it depends on which way you want to understand how it works. If you understand that it works, that the husband does it quietly, good. That wife doesn't hate her husband so much. She doesn't like what her husband did, but now she's fighting with her friends. But if you learn the other way, that the husband, or if you learn the other way, we want to learn that the husband does it publicly. You know who hates who now? The husband and the wife hate each other. The wife hates, you better believe it, hates the husband. Why? Because the husband is causing her terrible embarrassment by going to all her friends and the witnesses know about it. She's not fighting with her friends. She's fighting with her husband now and in a very bad situation. Let's go on to the next page of the Gemara. Sorry, started playing the video here. Page number 3. We're finally on the next page. Baruch Hashem, in our third lesson. No, here. You got to just move a few pages there because here. Alma Kasavar. Yeah. So 1 second, guys. Sorry. Hold on. I got to just do this here. We're almost done. And then we're going to take questions and we'll discuss it. We're basically done. Give me a few minutes, very few minutes, and we're good to go. Okay. Alma, so we see Kasavar, according Alma Kasavri, the Asur Lekanois. We see from here that it's prohibited to warn your wife. In other words, this whole idea of a husband warning a wife, it's not like it's in the books and it says, Mister, warn your wife if you see her acting bad. We're not encouraging this. As the notes in the commentary say, Avas Yisrael, love your fellow as yourself. What kind of chutzpah is this for a husband to warn his wife? We are talking, if he did do it, what are the ramifications and the after effects if a husband warned his wife? The whole word kinoi means a fight, means you're making a war between a husband and a wife, and that's obviously a terrible thing. The word itself is implying, according to this logic, that he's making a fight with her. That's not the way to deal with your business. By warning her, not letting her speak to people, you better go to a therapist and maybe check yourself out. Maybe you're part of the issue that these things are going on. That's through Avos Yisrael. This is not encouraged by Torah. Maybe like slavery sometimes. The Torah tells you how to protect a slave. We're not telling you should have a slave. The Torah is not telling you that the husband should warn his wife. According to this logic, it's prohibited to say this. It's not allowed. It's making a fight between a husband and a wife. We're just telling you that if you did, this is the way the water, eventually you're going to have to drink water, and there has to be witnesses there. If it was done, this is the outcome of it, but we're actually not encouraging you. We're actually telling you that it's a thing you should not do. No, husbands should tell their wives that they shouldn't hide with certain men. That's not allowed. Shouldn't do that. If you did it, this is going to be the outcome. You're going to have to then bring witnesses that she hid with the guy, and then you're going to have to give her the water. It's going to be a disastrous situation. So the Gemara just says, but there is a second opinion who holds mutter lakane, said you are allowed to do it. It's not a bad thing. And we're going to have this discussion. Don't worry, later on in the Gemara, we're going to have to get into this detail. Mahu lashon kinui, but we have to answer how does he explain the word kinui? The first two ways of explaining it was either she's going to fight with her friends or she's going to fight with her husband. It looks, according to every explanation, that the word kinui is a very bad idea. Amar Rabbi Nachman Yitzchak, so Rabbi Nachman Yitzchak says, "Ein kinui ela lashon hasra." Kinui is the word hasra, which would have been the classical word, is a warning. It doesn't mean that you're making a fight. It means that a husband is warning his wife not to do certain things. It's not a bad connotation of fight, but it's just a warning. It's telling her, I really don't want you to do this. This is something that I don't like. I don't want you hiding this guy. We're going to finish with this, and we see a verse that proves this point, according to this interpretation. Hashem warned his land. Over there, it's talking about a story where they were in the Navi, which we'll get to in our Navi class that we do, that Hashem warned the grasshoppers not to attack the land, take care of the people. But without getting into the topic, the Veikane means that Hashem is warning the grasshoppers not to continue attacking the Jewish people, not to continue attacking land. But we see the word kinui comes from just a warning word, not from a fighting word. So the first way this is the third way we're interpreting the word kinui. First way is that kinui is that she's going to fight with her friends. Second word kinui is that he's going to fight with her because now everybody knows about it. Third way is it's just simply doesn't have a bad kind of negative connotation to it. It simply means a warning that the husband is warning his wife. And that is the end of today's Gemara. Beautiful Gishmak. Let me stop the recording here as we learn together, and we'll repeat it.